Well, we'd like to I'm going to kick off because we have a very full 55 minutes. I might save the questions right till the end. So if you could put them in chat this time, just because I think some of the questions made us overrun a little bit and Malin had to go at speed at the end. So welcome all for joining us. My name is Tracy Robbins. I head up the UK delivery programme for Eden Project Communities. I have 4 wonderful guest speakers with me today, which is Jack, Malin, Sonia and Andrea, if you'd all like to give a wave. I think, see Sonia and Andrea, I don't know who's who. I think it was Andrea that's left the room, or it could have been Sonia. When I get the slide
Sonia's glasses.
That's it, Sonia with glasses, I'll remember that.
Until she takes them off.
Right, well, I will be sharing my screen and then moving the slides on, hopefully more effectively than last time. But we will take them down in between so that you can see our speakers. But if you want to watch it in speaker view, you'll see the presentation and the speaker at the side. So I will share my screen now and see whether we can do this properly. So as I said, my name's Tracy Robbins. I'm head of the UK delivery programme for Eden Project Communities. So Eden Project have amazing biomes down in Cornwall, and you probably wonder what on earth they have to do with the big lunch. But Eden at its core is around sustainability, resilience and social action. And that's what we're about. And the UK outreach team, which is in all 4 nations, is all about that as well. And we believe that it's the broader sense of sustainability that involves that human connection. So our main role is to get people connected to each other, and that's what we do. So it's a pretty awesome job. And I just want to share this quote from Tony Kendall, who used to work at Eden Project. And he said, "This century is going to demand the best of us. We need to be flexible, innovative, inspired, strong individuals and communities, ready to respond to the best of their abilities to the challenges ahead." And I really believe that we have seen our communities, our neighbourhoods, our town and parish councils really tested with COVID. And what we've also seen is those people who are already connected fared better than those who didn't. So we need to get people connected where they live so that they're ready for the challenges ahead. So we really believe in a neighbourhood approach, and that's where we come from. So we look at people and people in a place. So when I'm talking about communities, I'm talking about place-based, although we do see a lot of communities of interest hold big lunches. But I'm thinking about where we live, because it's all about building those relationships and those informal support networks that will keep us going and reduce our impact, I think, on services and make living where we live so much better. It's all about making every connection and conversation count, and actually being able to listen to each other and listen to our neighbours and get to know each other. We really believe in giving people reasons to connect. So we talk about permission quite a lot, and I'll go on to that a bit more. So trying to give people reasons to connect, opportunities to connect, and opportunities to stay connected. We also try and encourage people to prioritise the time to connect and to be with others and to be kind, which might sound a bit obvious, but often if you're still working and there's networking events or things like that, you won't go, or they'll be not as priority as your inbox, you know. So, and those connections fall off, our connections with our friends fall off our busy schedules. So it's about how do we keep that relationships as a priority. Being really aware of the us and them that there is in any community and with groups. I used to work in a rural village outside Bradford, which was well known for its clans and its groups. And I think if there'd have been a younger demographic, they'd have been called gangs. It was that sort of them and us. But just to be mindful, whenever we create a them, an identity, a name, a group of people, by the very nature, we create an us. And what do we do about that? How do we keep those boundaries fluid and involve people in it? And for me, something that's really important is about how we reduce that stigma around loneliness. So before going to Eden, I work for Joseph Rowntree Foundation doing the neighbourhood approaches to loneliness work, and looking at loneliness from a place perspective. And it was because we did big lunches in all those neighbourhoods that I went to Eden to talk about it, and then I ended up finding about this job. So I'm really passionate that, you know, being lonely is a ordinary feeling. You know, it happens to us all, and actually I do believe it's relationships, connections that keep us buoyed through that. So what does all that have to do with a big lunch? Well, in the loneliness field, we talk about the permission of snow. So when it snows, it gives people permission for their humanity to come to the fore and for them to care about their neighbours. It also gives them time, because most people aren't expecting them to be anywhere because it's snowing. So they're more likely to clear the streets, checking on a neighbour if they need some milk, help someone up the street with the buggy. People are more likely to come out when it's snow, the same with floods and fire. And of course, we've seen this with the coronavirus. But the great thing about snow is you can see where nobody's been. So you can really easily target those people that have footsteps up to their door, which is unlike other things. The big lunch is all about giving people permission, but it's about permission to come together over a positive experience. So when we come together over a crisis or an event like snow or the coronavirus, as soon as that dissipates, so does that level of priority, care, response. And we've already seen our communities, you know, dissipating, and that upswell of community engagement falling back down to a lower level. So the big lunch gives people permission and a reason and a set time every year to come together and have lunch with their neighbours. So that's what it's about. And the reason we do this is for simple things like, for 1 in 20 people, talking to the neighbours is the highlight of their day, but 53% of us still don't say hello to our neighbours or good morning on a morning. 63% of us would pop round for a cup of tea if we were invited. And that goes up to 72% if it's just a hot drink. There's a few people who don't like tea. But that's the invitation. So the big lunch is an invitation for people to take part. And we see that it really, really works. So over this year, over 9 million people got involved. That was over 1 million big lunches. Now, these are small. So big is everybody doing it together. But the actual big lunch, or joining in with the big lunch, they're often really small. And the smaller the big lunch, the better the social action and the better the connection. We actually saw 6.4 million new friendships developed, and 6.8 million people felt that they belonged more to their community. So we were just chatting about how we get people engaged and involved. If people have a sense of belonging, then they have a sense of responsibility, and it sort of tills the ground for more social action. And this says like 75% people are more likely to get involved in community activities. So it helps start people on that journey of community action. But the thing I like about this slide is my 6.6 million people that feel less lonely once they've gone to a big lunch. The thing you might like about this slide is actually, as a byproduct of the big lunch, a lot of people fundraise, about 27%. And of those who fundraise, they raised over 7.4 million pounds. That is generated around £8 million is raised every year since we've been measuring this. So now this year we put some advice about fundraising in our big lunch pack, just to encourage people to do that, because we know our communities and our community groups need it. Now this funding stays hyperlocal, so it's usually raised for things that people want. This year, next year, 2022, as we did in 2012, the big lunch will be underpinning the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. So it will be part of the official celebrations. So over that long weekend, we'll be doing big lunches, and the big Jubilee lunch community celebration will focus on the Sunday, although you can do it any time. We're mindful, working in all 4 nations, not everybody will want to do a big Jubilee lunch, so we maintain our big lunch packs and the big Jubilee lunch. And last year, we also did the month of community. So recognising that we wanted to put a mark in the sand for communities and to get people to think about their communities at least once a year and not just at Christmas, we noticed that there are already a lot of awareness weeks and action days in June. So you've got Volunteers Week, the Big Lunch, Neighbourhood Watch, Carers Week, Loneliness Awareness Week, Refugee Week, Small Charity Week, the Great Get Together, and Thank You Day. So we brought all those people around the table and said, shall we do the month of community? And then we use that as opportunities for people to do big lunches throughout the month, or to do other events throughout the month, and to really sort of get people to think about the communities and those activities. So that's what I wanted to really do, a quick whistle top sort of, oh, I'm trying to stop sharing and I can't see where you are, tour through the overview of the big lunch and what we do and why we do it. And that is a speedy chat through, so that I could pass you on to sort of town and parish councils who have done it, so you can listen and they can share their experience about what it has been like for them. Does anybody have any questions or clarifications on what I just whistle stopped through? No? Lovely. That's what I prefer. Stunned silence. No, I don't. Well, if you do, just pop them in the chat and we'll address them later. So our next wonderful speaker is going to be the lovely Jack, and I will share my screen. Am I sharing my screen?
Yep.
Yes. So now we have Jack, who's going to introduce himself and tell you a little bit about the big lunch and how it was born in Dunstable. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So my name's Jack and I'm the Senior Neighbourhood Development Officer for Dunstable Town Council. I'm based at a youth and community hub, which is called Grove Corner, and that's in the town of Dunstable, and that's in Bedfordshire. My role is predominantly community development and working with all sectors of the community, and that's including youth work. We have like a youth club here. We run different community projects across the town, and in particular older people's provision. I've worked at the council for roughly about nearly 8 years now, and I've not only seen my role change in that time, but also the communities across Dunstable have changed over that time as well in the town. So if we can go on to the next slide, I'm just going to talk about, about the big lunch in Dunstable, the lockdown lows that we kind of had, our hopes and aspirations, and kind of one simple action you can potentially take forward from here. So just going on to the big lunch and the next slide. So with older people needing more support than ever, the big lunch, we feel, provides a big platform to do this for older people, across the country, but obviously here in Dunstable in particular as well. Dunstable Town Council does have a dedicated older people's officer who runs 2 lunch clubs a week. One's for over 75s on a Monday and one is for over 55s on a Wednesday. Both do have guest speakers each week. They have activities, trips, even parties. So I'm sure they'll be partying very soon for Christmas, and much, much more. And they do receive kind of weekly support where required, and they get useful information from different providers and professionals on a regular basis. We saw that a community group had run a big lunch locally in Dunstable in an estate in the town, and with support from us and other organisations, we're able to attract people within that estate to come and attend and get together and have a picnic lunch on a big field. Unfortunately, it was run by a community association, and that community association dissolved. So from 2017, we as a town council thought, it's a brilliant event. We'd seen it kind of online and how much of a difference it made to people. We'd love to kind of keep it going. So from 2017, we brought it kind of more central in Dunstable, and that's where we started kind of our big lunch events. And so from our point of view, we wanted to kind of aim, to as many people as we could. So we looked at about 100 older people who lived in Dunstable. So put it out there to 100 older people, putting out to the lunch clubs that we did have, but also it allowed us to reach other people across Dunstable. So not just those that are already getting that information and that kind of regular friendship, regular conversations they're having, we can, branch out to the whole of Dunstable. So yeah, aimed at 100 older people, all Dunstable residents, and they would receive a free picnic lunch provided on the big marquee, as you can see in the top left, with live entertainment and, information providers who could give out, useful information that, they might not be able to get elsewhere. So the top left, as you can see, the weather wasn't very nice. That was our very first big lunch, which saw a really big downpour, considering it was June. But over 80 hardy people attended, and they all very much enjoyed it. We had a ukulele group, and it was really, really good fun. And then from then, every year we've tried to put one on aimed at 100 older people, and it's grown and grown, and the kind of it's spread, like wildfire. It's grown every year, and it's seen waiting lists every year as well. And so from this, seeing that it's so popular and needed, we undertook some consultation, which has allowed us to put on other provision to support older people. So these big lunch events are for those that are over 65. So this has allowed us to put other provision on across the town. So this includes coffee mornings. We've able to put on 10 free coffee mornings. And another thing to notice, this big lunch event that we do run is free for anyone that attends. So yeah, coffee mornings, we've been able to put on them, which have all been, really well attended. We also put on an event called Rock and a Roll, which is similar to the big lunch, but on a smaller scale. This is a paid event, but from the consultation, people were happy to do that. And so we run that at a facility that we have here in Dunstable. So yeah, it's allowed us to, put on other provisions as well as the big lunch itself. And as you can see on the pictures, as someone having absolute brilliant fun in the top left, the local organisations we get involved, like Age UK, Disability Resource, and obviously Bedfordshire Police as well. And everyone comes, has loads of fun, meets new people, and yeah, has a great day out. So just going on to the next slide, lockdown lows. Obviously, all lockdown periods have brought some really difficult times for everyone, and in particular older people. We were unable to provide a big lunch in person or virtually in 2020, unfortunately. However, in 2020, we did try and support where possible to any residents that needed it, whether that's through prescription runs, food parcels, and much, much more for people locally. 2021 provided us with a challenge again of how we could do the big lunch. We still wanted to do something, but wasn't sure, with government guidance and COVID still being around, what we could do. So with restrictions unknown, we made the decision to run kind of a virtual big lunch to keep as many people safe at that time, and obviously following the government guidance. So as you can see from the pictures, we put on kind of a star-studded curtain. We got the screens, and we got an organisation involved that could run all this with us. And we had over 60 older people join us for a live kind of virtual big lunch, which included entertainment streamed right into their homes. They could be safe at their homes and enjoy some entertainment, and they could see everybody on the screen, whoever was attending. And even some invited, the bubbles at the time over to enjoy the event. We delivered hand picnic lunches to each home as well. And we also created these information packs. So, those organisations that you saw earlier gave us loads of leaflets and information that, people might need at that time. So we put them in these packs as well as the lunches for anyone that kind of needed it. And it was a really brilliant event. Over 60 older people attended, and, wasn't sure how well it would go. And, we were really, really pleased with it. So for us, in terms of hopes and aspirations, our hope now is to run an in-person event in 2022 and bring the big lunch back. Our theme next year is going to be in line with the Queen's Jubilee and make it as fun-filled as possible. If we can help one person, whether that's making a friend, just enjoying themselves, or providing some information that they really get something out of, then we've accomplished what we've set out to achieve. And from us, from a town council perspective, one simple action is look at a small scale point of view. Are you able to facilitate, either that's just a group of friends getting together? Is that a group of neighbours, a little community, whether that's in a park, community centre, or just some free space? If you're able to make a difference to one person, then that's a start, and you can always just build from there. And the difference that things like the big lunch make to people's lives in a very small period of time, is so worth it, and you can really impact so many more as you go on. So that's it from me, I think. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you. That's always inspiring. I always think it's amazing. One, that we get chance to dance, because I certainly miss the opportunity to dance, but also what actually generates from a big lunch. And I think that's really a lovely example. Thank you. If you've got any questions you think you might forget, pop them in the chat and we'll come to them at the end. Now I'm going to hand over to the lovely Sonia and Andrea, who are going to talk a little bit about what they're up to in Burn. Oh, let's go back. Try that one. Sonia and Andrea.
Hello.
Hello.
I suppose the first thing we ought to say is that why would Burn, which is only 400 people roughly and 200 houses, even need to do something like a big lunch? Probably the way to approach that is to say that whilst it's only a small village, it's fairly scattered. The village has 200 houses, most of which are on two sides of a very busy main road, outlying farms. And
sorry, just to interrupt you. So, could everybody make sure they're on mute, please? Because we're getting a bit of background noise and I can't mute you because I'm in a breakout room. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, that's all right, don't worry. Technology is wonderful. So yes, the village used to have lots of events. I mean, I've been here 22 years now, but prior to that, way back, just during the war and after the war, there were small communities. People stayed here, they worked the land here mostly, or they worked in Selby, which is only down the road. But gradually, of course, that's changed. We now have a lot of people living here who are older. They don't necessarily walk their kids to the bus stop anymore, or work together in the fields, or borrow each other's tractors. And also we have new families moving in whose parents, if they've got small children, the parents work in Leeds or they work in York, or you know, they don't meet up during the day because there's no need to. Everybody has cars these days. There aren't a lot of people queuing for buses, giving each other sort of hello in the morning as they're dropping the kids off. So the big lunch, to take up the big lunch, sort of came out of another issue that was attacking the village. Basically, we had a bypass built around Selby, and most of the traffic from the M62 now comes through our village, whereas previously it didn't bother because it had to go through the middle of Selby and face a swing bridge, which was more often closed than not. So a group of us got together to basically poll the village about what we should do about the traffic, put pressure on local councillors and MPs to have some speed limits involved. And out of that, we thought, well, we're aware that people want to get involved in things locally, but they don't know each other. And the big lunch came up because we saw adverts and things from the Eden Project in local press and such like, and thought this is an ideal opportunity. So we thought we'd take it on board as a way of getting the community that used to exist back in touch with each other, and also to start involving the new people who'd moved in over the last 30 or so years.
So the first year, we were fortunate that we more or less started out the same year that the Eden Project actually started the big lunch advertising. So in the first way, we did, again, because we're a smaller community, we literally just door knocked every resident in our village just to gauge what they would want to be attending a big lunch, what the concept, what the idea was, but at the same time to try and get their commitment. So it was a case of you bring something to eat, bring something that you can share with other people at a table. Ideally bring a chair with you, because we're not going to have sufficient to go around in that sense, because we've never done a bigger scale for our small village like this before. So it was to get that commitment. So we door knocked on everybody. The first year that we did, we had nearly 100 people, perhaps about 70-80 people on the first year that we did it, which actually we were overwhelmed with, that we had people turn up in that first instance. as with everything, it's always a concern or a worry, thinking that you're going to be there and nobody's going to turn up to your party. But no, year on year, we started doing an increase in numbers. We started to see people bringing their own food. We put the gazebos up in a local car park at the pub because we don't have anything else in the village. But more or less year on year, we started to see an increase, even despite the perhaps the different weather systems that throw various states of disarray upon us. We did the Jubilee in 2012 and we chose the worst day possible, but that was perhaps one of the biggest turnouts of perhaps over 120 people. So year on year, we've always done and added to the number of people. And I suppose the word gets around in that sense, and they then start to say, are you doing a big lunch this year? Or when's the big lunch? I'm going to book some holiday. So I think it gets that commitment out of people. And also, even though with COVID last year, and because we couldn't get groups of us together, we did like little goodie bags with quiz books, newsletter, a voucher to the pub for takeaways, which they then did as a means of giving back to the community in that sense. So we tried to still stay connected, and then the community Facebook page grew because of last year as well. That was the first time that we'd ever got technical in that sense. So we more or less instigated from encouraging people to perhaps have a picnic in their front garden, so that there was still that distance, but people could still see each other and feel as though they're connected. At the same time as having a community Facebook page to actually air problems and that support as well.
I think one of the things that Jack mentioned as well is the fact that it doesn't have to be, and also Tracy's mentioned, it doesn't have to be a big lunch. The big is the way it connects with people, not necessarily size. And I think that's important, is just to get people on board, no matter how small the group to start with, because as Jack said, it will feed out into the community. And also to get on board any existing groups. Tracy mentioned the them and us. We have a chapel and we have the pub. So by utilising the pub car park, we got interest from people who were regulars at the pub as to what's going on. But also we involved the chapel, we had stalls, and we always do a charity collection. So it's like a village charity, so people feel that they're getting involved. And also, and like Jack's, it's free for anyone who comes. Partly by the fact that I'm not ashamed of going cap in hand to any supermarket or organisation that happens to be around to say, look, we're having a community event. It's to get people together. It's to foster community spirit. Can you help us? And to be fair, for the last 12, 13 years, we've had support from all the supermarkets in Selby. So we'll take questions. Mm-hmm. Just do it, I think, is the answer.
I'm hoping you're inspiring many. So again, if you've got any questions, do pop them in the chat, and then I shall hand over to Malin, who is not, I have to confess, from a town or parish council, but from a county council. But I've known Malin for a long time in her previous job role, as she will explain. And I just think her example of how she has took what she has learned about the big lunch into an organisation as big as the county council, and how she adapted that during coronavirus is really interesting. So maybe an example for other roles you might have. So I'm going to share my screen and hand over to Malin, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Malin. I'm a senior public affairs manager at Surrey County Council. I joined about a year and a couple of months ago, and before that I worked at the National Lottery Community Fund, where I came across the big lunch for the first time, and Tracy and her amazing team, and I've been a passionate advocate for the project ever since. I thought it was an amazing opportunity when I joined the county council to bring the big lunch along with me, because I work in the communities and arts and culture profile mostly, and So when I started my job, I had mentioned the big lunch right away, and it was sort of one of the first big projects I pitched to the council, because I thought it is a great opportunity for us to work towards more connected communities in Surrey. So it feeds into our county vision for communities, because our goal really is to create happier and healthier communities across the county. And I think we can only do that if our communities are connected and there is much less loneliness as there is now. And it's sort of a really great opportunity for us as well to celebrate our amazing communities throughout the year. And we have a really hard time as a county council often to build trust on a local level with residents, and bringing forward something like the big lunch. We thought it would be an amazing time of the year to actually work with partners and residents locally, to figure out how we can help and empower them to have more community activities in their localities. And also we thought Surrey is such a large county with 1.2 million residents that it's really hard for us to sort of figure out a shared identity, and the big lunch could potentially help with that. So our big plan initially was that we would work with our 52 libraries across the council and host a big lunch there, to invite people to a picnic and games for children and lots of activities throughout the day, and then have conversations with them about what they want and need to be happy in their local communities. Next slide, Tracy. Unfortunately, we were told end of April that that wouldn't happen because of COVID, and that the council couldn't go out and host anything because they were really worried about, infecting large groups of people. And while that was really sad, I thought it would still be great to spread the word about the big lunch. And I reached out to pretty much anybody you could think of, including libraries and partners and Ds and Bs and parish councils and any messaging board that was out there, and charities, and asked them to share the word about the big lunch. The big lunch team had shared a really helpful pack, a communications pack that we adapted a bit to our messaging and then sent that around. And as you can see, lots of people shared our messaging. I mean, there's just 4 examples here, and libraries actually turned out to be our most active partner, because they also put up posters around the big lunch, and they had a book display around recipes, and spoke to residents about taking part this year in a really small and localized manner, and just in front of their doorsteps, and having conversations about it. And we also put out 15 social media posts over 4 weeks with no money behind it at all, and we're able to reach 600,000 people because we got quite creative. Some of the younger members of our team put out gifts, and they just had fun with it, I think. And these things went on Nextdoor and Twitter and Instagram. And yeah, and we just had quite a lot of engagement around it. And we were hoping it would help us build a foundation for next year and just familiarize people, and especially partners, with the project already. And while all of that was exciting, but also disappointing, I sort of went away with thinking I wanted to do something more. And because I'd only joined the council 6 months prior, and I'd only been to the office once in that entire time, I felt quite isolated. We're a really large organization. We have over 10,000 people working for us. And I'd sort of heard that across the 6 months I'd worked there, that people don't really know how to speak to each other anymore, or reach out to teams they'd never spoken to, which made for a lot of siloed working, which isn't really helpful when you want to work with communities and share information. So my idea was to have a big lunch at the council and sort of figure out how we could do that virtually. I asked people in my team to help me with that, and we were sort of told by HR that there isn't really an appetite for virtual events, but they wished us good luck to try. So we actually thought, let's just go for it. And we reached out to lots of different teams in the council and just asked them for help. We asked them whether or not they wanted to host an event. It just had to be an hour long. It could be formal or informal. We just wanted to help people come together and sort of create a sense of identity and further collaborative working in the long term. We didn't have any funding initially. We asked for a tiny bit, and we got £100 to give to a speaker who came in came in virtually to help with her expenses. And then we also worked with external stakeholders like the Eden Project and charities, and asked if they might want to contribute to this. And we sort of thought maybe we'll have an event or two. But what actually happened was quite exciting, because we ended up, next slide, Tracy, having 15 events and 15 groups of people coming forward wanting to do it. And we ended up having an internal big lunch week. Lots of different workshops took place. I mean, you can see here, there was an arts workshop, people painted stuff together. There was a big book lunch. There was also our communities team who spoke about their work and told people how they could get involved. We had a volunteer come in from the community and actually tell other people how to get involved in volunteering. which was really, really exciting. We had some, we had a workshop talking about how you can reach out to strangers. And we also made a really informal big lunch page internally that we had, and we had a recipe competition and lots of information about the big lunch that people could engage with. And what was even more exciting than having these 15 workshops, next slides, was that unexpectedly 500 people signed up for all of these events and came along and engaged with the big lunch. And people afterwards told us they'd really come along because they were curious about what was happening, but they wanted to get to know more colleagues. They wanted to collaborate. They wanted to feel more connected and have fun. And as you can see by the numbers, I think most people said they made most new connections, and also really wanted to do this again next year, which felt incredible. And I think in the past 6 months, it has really shown what an impact this has had. A lot of people had an easier time reaching out to colleagues. I met lots of people, just me, I met lots of people that I'd never met before and didn't know that even existed in the council, from a coroner to teachers, you know, to social care workers, but also just people who are going out to communities and speaking to people. So I feel much more confident, even virtually now, to just reach across and ask people for 10 minutes of their time to talk to me about something instead of making it really formal, because I find it much easier this way now. And yeah, I guess sort of my top tips for doing a big lunch would be start small and don't get discouraged. I mean, we didn't have anything to go on. We had never done anything like this before at the council. And, you know, it grew organically. We had got so many people involved. I think collaboration is really key here, getting other people involved in the project. And without all of these other teams who contributed to the big lunch week, with us just doing the technical support and sending out invites and stuff, we couldn't have done it, and it wouldn't have been this exciting. And they knew lots of more people that they shared it with, and they got lots more people on board. And I think overall, it just felt like a really, really exciting week, even though we just had, I think, 3 weeks to organize it. And I would also say engage with any sort of person you can think of, whether it be local communities or charities or councils or partner organizations. So many people want to help. I think Sonia and Andrea said too, like, just ask, you know, it can't hurt to ask. All they can do is say no, and you've lost nothing by doing that. And be flexible and think outside the box. I never thought I would organize a big lunch online like I did, but I thought it was a really great way. Because we are so spread out over the county, I don't think we could have ever gotten that many people into a room together and met with each other. And that's not to say we don't want to do it in person one day, but to meet all of these people that have lots of responsibilities was only possible because we did it virtually. And don't worry about a budget. There's lots of free tools out there to promote what you're doing, and, you know, use libraries and community centers to advertise. I mean, we had a parish newsletter that was amazing and got lots of engagement. And yeah, my last tip is have fun, because this is for you just as much as for other people. And it's a great opportunity to take part in.
Thank you, Malin. That was lovely. Thank you so much. So you've had some real good examples there from different aspects of the big lunch and how it brings people together. I think there's some real common themes about that, starting small, I suppose being brave and not worrying, getting the word out there and seeing who picks it up. It's an invitation. Does anybody else have any questions for our speakers? We do have a comment in the chat that says we have a local organisation who normally do this. We could have 2 in a community of around 16,000 residents. Wow, that'd be a lot of people at them. I guess they're not all attended. Does anybody have any questions for our speakers today, or any? I should imagine when you hear things like this, the first thing that comes to your mind are the barriers or the challenges of getting involved with something like that. Has any popped up for anybody that we could help while we're in the room together? I love how people put it in the chat. So risk assessments, do you do this yourself? So I will hand over. I think I'll start with Malin, because I should imagine you're the more formal. And then if Jack or Sonia or Andrea want to pick that up.
Yeah, I mean, that was the main reason why we couldn't do anything this year. There was sort of a real blocker. And then we were also really concerned for our staff in our libraries, because that had been our plan and we didn't want to put them at risk. But yes, so we do it ourselves. And next year, what our plan is, we're going to try and do it in the smaller teams
Mhm.
and get the help we need for that. But in general, in general, it's pretty straightforward, I think, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do these ourselves. We have a process we have to go through to run these types of events, and obviously make sure that all risks are kind of considered and managed and that kind of thing. So as a town council, yeah, we have our own kind of process to any type of event that we do, in particular the big lunch. So yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, Tracy, could I just add something? If this is something everybody's interested in, I mean, I speak for Surrey, but I know we would always be keen to hear from any sort of council, parish council, town council, to reach out to us and ask for help, because you know, we want to work with more people. I think it's just really hard to find the connection sometimes and find the right people to talk to.
Thank you. Sonia, Andrea?
We're particularly lucky in the village because someone who's helped us for years and also helps us with all our Christmas events, which will be starting this weekend with a drive around sleigh and things, actually manage a huge risk assessment company and do big events and safety and security. So we're lucky on that side. But I'd say, like as Malin and Jack have said, just speak to the police, speak to your community policemen, because we always invite them as well, and they can give you a lot of advice. You know, but yes, you do have to make sure you've got things safe, particularly if you're using a marquee or you've got a band playing, which we often have. But as I say, we've been lucky, but I would always inform the police that you're doing things, because they'll send somebody down and make sure you're safe as well.
But also to utilise what your community already has,
yeah,
because
you don't know who
ultimately
you've got.
There's a lot of people out there that have got so many different skills, come from so many different occupations, that utilise them. That's what it's all about.
Just ask,
and they know their
if anybody can help.
community. They know the problems that could arise with regards to risk assessments,
but
and
it does
get them
need to be done.
involved.
It does need.
Well, it does need to be done if you're an organisation. So this is why I have these examples here, because I don't do a risk assessment for my big lunch. So I think it depends on the scale. So if you're encouraging your neighbours to come together, so my neighbours come together in my yard and we have a big lunch and we put up a gazebo. So this is not an organisation. So if you encourage your communities or your people, you don't risk assess if you're going to bring your friends round to a party. You know, you don't, if you're going to a friend for a meal, you don't ask them to see their food, health and hygiene certificate before you sit down to eat. You know, so it depends on scale. And I think that is, so I just want to be really strong, because we'll talk to a lot of people, go, do I need a insurance? Do I need a risk assessment? Do I need all this? Yes, if you're a formal organisation or you're using a venue, you probably do. If you're not, if you're Tracy Robins doing one in her village on her property, no, you know, my friends are coming round, or they are now, they weren't originally. We do have on the Eden site, we do have, I think, template risk assessments, and we do it also, I don't know whether we've negotiated it this year, we do also have an insurance company that will give a reduced insurance, to say that if you have neighbourhood watch people in your area, or you're also a member of the neighbourhood watch, all the activities done under neighbourhood watch banner are covered by their insurance. So you could maybe get your neighbourhood watch coordinators to coordinate your big lunch if you want that insurance. But I just think let's use some common sense around this, because it's that fear of bureaucracy, of getting it wrong or being sued, that stops people from bringing things together. But as I said, I'm product of community development through and through, so I'm probably a bit further down the scale, and I'm not a formal organisation. But if we can try keep it in perspective, I think that really helps encourage. What you really want to do is encourage your parishioners, your community members, to do it themselves, because then it will have the greatest impact. So I have a parish council here. They're sending out wildflower seeds to everybody. We'll do a big lunch in our village, and hopefully quite a few others will, because I always do. But I'm working with the City Council, Carlisle Council, about doing sort of bigger events that people can go to. they're two completely different beasts. So yeah, it's just to think about the formality depending on the scale. So we always say smaller is better. And now outside's become incredibly popular. Yeah. Any other questions for us? God, we've rushed through this one because we were late in the last one to give you time for questions. Don't let us down. We're going to pick on somebody in a minute. Okay, I will ask you then, who has done a big lunch? Who's thinking about doing a big lunch then? Oh, good. I've got one hand up. I'm assuming everybody who doesn't have a camera on is putting their hand up. So those who have listened about the big lunch and are not thinking about doing one, again, what's the things that's stopping you? How can we help?
Can I?
Yes, Margaret.
Hello,
Yeah.
Margaret. We're in a fairly small village next to a big city, and we are thinking of doing it. And what we've started doing since September after COVID was lots of, we're having a coffee morning every week. That's been very successful. We've now got 40 people coming, which we're thrilled with. Fab. And they're saying, can't we do it every day, which is not possible. But yes, so I'm thinking, and I've been thinking, because many of them are older people who live on their own, you know, usually bereaved fairly recently. And I was thinking, I want to give them lunch. You know, I'm thinking that already, because it feels like a lunch is a different thing to share, isn't it? They're getting very friendly now. They've got, you know, they've made friends and talking to each other. And then I was thinking about, it seems awful to bring their own food. Do you know what I mean? We need to feed them. There's that. And then that, as you said, it gets into health and hygiene and chefs and God knows what. But the big lunch sounds nice. And then we thought, we definitely got a big Jubilee agenda going on, just beginning to emerge. And then I thought, really, what we do want is to involve small groups of people. So those people who come to our coffee morning, we want them to go back to their road and have a lunch in their road. That's the best way, because that's going to have a more of a lasting impact, because we've got a great big field we could do it on. But I'm thinking, in our circumstances, I think we'd rather encourage them to be in their own small community. So it's a different thing to do. And as you said, we can encourage them, we can give them guidance, can't we? Share your website and all that sort of stuff. And maybe buy some things, you know, like banners or something, you know, and give them out. I don't know, something like that. That's what I'm thinking of. But it does feel better to do it in a small scale to me.
Definitely, and I absolutely agree with you, Margaret. I think so with any sort of support group or where people come together and they make connections there, they still go back to where they live, where they might not have connections. So if we can give those people confidence and resources, the skills to go back and do it where they live, even if it's maybe with a couple of people from that group coming and helping, they're more likely to make connections and feel like they belong in that street. And it's really interesting because I now, having moved from Bradford, which was a really busy place, to a rural village, when I did the big lunch here for the first time, everybody was saying, we don't need a big lunch. We all know each other here. And then I got talking to a couple of, we were renovating the house, so I invited some people round. I knew even if they didn't want to meet me, they'd want to see what we were doing to the house. People were nosy. And I got to meet a couple of the women, and we said, let's go for it anyway. And it's just on a crossroads, about 60 houses, hamlet, not even a village, no meeting point. And although everybody did know who lived in the village, they never came together.
Oh, wow.
So they never met. Do you know, so they knew who lived there, but they never had time to converse or meet. And I had one Alan asking his wife who Janice was, and she went, that's your bloody neighbour, she's been your neighbour for 19 years. But she just lived on another corner. And it was really interesting. And I was really scared about coming in as a newbie, you know, saying, shall we do this thing? Which was when I got a couple of the neighbours, the other women in the village that had been there a bit longer, so it gives me that bit of confidence. So yeah, I think it is interesting, people's perceptions of what they do and don't need. And now from that we have a WhatsApp ladies group, and someone does a New Year's Eve party now. So it's not loads, but there's a real sense of connection being brought now.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you for sharing. That's really inspiring to hear that you're thinking of doing it. And if you need any support, you now know what 5 people who can help.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did someone else unmute, or was that me wishful thinking? I thought it might have been a Sue. Could have been mistaken. Don't want to put you on the spot. Right, well, in that case, that is it from us all. I think you get a gift of, maybe 7 minutes before the next session. But we want to thank you and for your time and for listening to us. And I hope you've had a good day at the NOUT conference. And if you need any help or advice moving forward, please do get in touch.
Thank you very much. Lovely.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. See you later. See you later, everybody. Thank you for joining. If you want to leave the room, just click leave the room in your bottom right-hand corner. So normally when I'm in a main meeting room, this is where I start removing people, but you can't in a breakout room. So not to worry. Can I just say, we'll not worry about our guests who are still here. They're obviously busy. So can I just say thank you all for your sharing your knowledge and your experience and whatnot. How did you find that?
It was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, really nice to share and let everyone know. I found.
Yeah, thank you. Sonia, Andrea?
Yeah, useful. And I think it's important that people realise they don't have to do a huge event. I think it's got to be something spectacular. But it's like Malin says, you know, if you can, and Jack, if you can affect 2 people or something, it's worth it. And then you've got that connection with them, and then you can build on that next time.
I think what was really nice, because people talk to us about the big lunch and they think they have to do it in a set way. And I think what we've really demonstrated today is actually make it your own. So I'm really pleased. So my sincere thanks to you all for giving up your time in this. And if you send me your addresses, I'll send you thank you cards. I've spoiled the surprise, but I need your addresses.
Just put Burn and it'll get to us. People know us. Oh, it's so true.
But it would be lovely to keep in touch. And if you are willing to do this again, you don't have to say now, but if you can let me know, because we'll be talking to quite a few people over the course of the year.
We'll send you some pictures from our Christmas if it all happens on Saturday, and the following 19th is the other one.
Well, if I put you in touch with our PR team, you might be on blogs or websites, but also it might be nice to be able to follow your planning.
I can't wait to see what people are doing next year. It's started already almost. You start thinking and you end up knocking ideas off of each other. It's almost, we've not even done Christmas yet.
Yeah. It's a bit like I used to say to my daughter whose birthday was in March, no, we can't talk about your birthday until Christmas is over. But I still think the Jubilee's this year. That's all I've been talking about it. Right, well, thank you so much, everybody. My sincere gratitude. You did incredibly well. You made us look good. What more could I ask? What more could I ask? Okay, I'll be in touch on email.
Have a great Christmas, everybody.
Thank you, Andrew.
Bye.
Have a good Christmas.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye.